Everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Doris and I'm here to share with you about my stock account update in today's market. Today my stock account has earned $726. US stocks closed down and all three major indexes fell in February. Tesla, Apple, COINBASE, Zoom related companies. In my stock account today, including the post-market price, today's PL is 1.39% of gain, which is $1,083. Right now, the net asset of my account is $78,828.89. Today, SQQQ rose for 0.51% during the market, and after the market closed, it rose for 1.56% to 39.74. The RV decreased for 0.19% during the market, and in the post-market it rose for 0.31%. Today, Dow Jones Industrial Average decreased for 0.71% to 32,656.7. Nasdaq Composite made a loss of 0.1%, and S&P 500 made a loss of 0.3%. The industry is overall close to mixed today, and few industries that fluctuated most, including healthcare plants, oil and gas, drug manufacturers. Investors continue to focus on corporate earnings and U.S. economic data. The Richmond Fed's manufacturing index hit its lowest level since May 2020. US was the last trading day in February, while the stocks had a decent start to 2023. Major indexes recorded their second monthly declines in the last 3 months in February. In February, the Dow fell 4.2%, wiping year-long gains and turning to a loss. The S&P 500 fell 2.6%, and Nasdaq fell 1.1%. On Tuesday, the yield on the benchmark 10-year Treasury note climbed as high as 3.983%, its highest level since November 10th. The 30-year Treasury yield rose to 3.95%. On Monday, the 2-year yield rose to 4.8%, the highest level since November. The KKM financial founder and CEO Jeff Kilberg said, "Most investors expect the 10-year Treasury yield to exceed 4%. And I think if the yield is not capped at 4%, it'll help the stock market to recover in March. When the US stocks fluctuate wildly in February, you should buy some stocks." He added, "Inflationary pressures are weakening, but inflation will not plummet compared with the high CPI of 9.1% in June 2022. The Fed in February deliberately weighed on buying driven by fear of missing out. Stocks investors with missed bias were mostly those who held insufficient positions in January. Citigroup strategists led by Chris Montel said that insignificantly more bearish volatility last week. Traders added nearly $3 billion to S&P for short positions in 500 futures and withdrew a net of $5.1 billion from exchange-traded funds, ETFs. Cash should be the wisest investment option. With the recent repricing of expectations of the Federal Reserve and peak interest rates hitting stocks and bonds, said a cross-asset strategist Charlie McGregor at Nomura International. 50 Park Investments CEO Adam Sarhan said, "February will go down in history because the market pulled back and digested the very large rally you have seen between the end of December through most of January. This is a month of correction. This is a month of recuperation. As long as support was last week's lowest, it's defended and maintained. That's good." On the economics front, the CPV's Consumer Confidence Index stood at 102.9%. 102.9 in February compared with 108.5 expected and 107.1 expected last month. The Richmond Fed Service Revenue Index came in at 3 in February, up from -6 last month. The Richmond Fed's manufacturing index recorded -16 in February, the lowest since May 2020. Tesla, Apple, COINBASE, Zoom-related companies. Tesla Europe announced Monday that it produced 4,000 Model Y this week, and a review of its production plans found that Berlin planned to reach the milestone capacity target 3 weeks ahead of the schedule. The European Commission said on Tuesday that the antitrust investigation into Apple will no longer focus on in-app payment technology and will instead focus on the contractual constraints Apple imposes on music app developers that prevent developers from informing iPhone and iPad users of cheaper music subscription options outside apps. Apple said it was pleased that the European Commission had narrowed the scope of antitrust investigation, and that it would continue to work with the agency on the matter. Wang, an analyst at Richmond International Securities, who has been tracking Apple's supply chain for many years, said that its latest survey shows that Apple has recently restarted the iPhone SE4, with biggest change from the previous SE series being the use of OLED screens rather than LCD screens. In overall design, the SE4 is more likely a 6.1-inch iPhone 14-based variant. The new SE4 is expected to use a 5G-based chip made out of 4 nanometers and is currently expected to support only the sub-6 GHz bands. In addition, Apple cable supplier Zhongwei Foxlink hit a major factory in India on Monday and is unlikely to resume full operations within 2 months. The fire collapsed some of the buildings at the factory, damaging about half of the machines and losing more than $12 million, the report said. Zhongwei is said to be Apple's main supplier in India, an accident that could lead to a supply chain disruption for iPhone made in India or shipped in India. Cryptocurrency exchange COINBASE announced on Monday that it will suspend trading in Binance BUSD coins on March 13th. This decision applies to the COINBASE and its Pro exchange and Prime platforms. BUSD is the third largest stablecoin by market cap. During the suspension, users can still use BUSD funds and withdraw funds at any time. A COINBASE spokesman has said the decision to suspend BUSD transaction was based on an internal monitoring and review process. Zoom Q4 revenue of $1.12 billion, up 4% year-on-year. Full-year revenue of $4.39 billion, up 7% year-on-year. Online revenue for the fourth quarter was $482 million, down 10% year-on-year. A net loss of $104 million and a full-year net profit of $104 million. Bank of Santander plans to buy back 921 million euros of its shares. Alcon's 2023 guidance exceeded expectations. Target beat expectations for the fourth quarter. Elsewhere, gold futures for April delivery rose $11.8 or nearly 0.7 on close at $1,836.7 an ounce on the New York Mercantile Exchange on Tuesday. On a most active contract basis, gold futures fell 5.6% in February, the first monthly decline in 4 months. U.S. benchmark West Texas Intermediate crude futures for April delivery rose $1.37 or 1.8% to settle at $77.05 a barrel on the New York Mercantile Exchange. On a most active contract basis, WTI crude oil futures fell 2.3% in February, the fourth consecutive month of decline. That's all I have for today. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and like. See you next episode.